Isabel, a writer seeking solace and inspiration, found herself drawn to the crumbling grandeur of Blackwood Manor. The mansion stood like a sentinel of forgotten times, its walls whispering tales of yesteryears. She yearned for a place to finish her novel, a place where the silence would be her only companion. The hustle and bustle of the city had drained her creativity, and she longed for the tranquility that only isolation could provide. The old mansion, with its air of forgotten elegance and stories whispered on the wind, seemed the perfect sanctuary. Each room held a sense of history, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the lives of those who had once lived there. Little did she know, the silence was a deceptive illusion. The stillness of the manor was not just the absence of sound but a presence in itself, waiting to reveal its secrets. Blackwood Manor held secrets, and they were eager to be heard. The creak of the floorboards, the rustle of the curtains, all seemed to whisper her name, beckoning her deeper into its embrace. The moment Isabel stepped across the threshold, she felt a shift. It was as if the house had been waiting for her, and now that she was here, it was alive with anticipation. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of ages. Every breath she took seemed to draw in the essence of the past, filling her lungs with the stories of those who had come before. Dust motes danced in the slivers of sunlight that pierced the gloom. They moved like tiny spirits, caught in a timeless ballet, adding to the ethereal atmosphere of the place. She told herself it was just the age of the house, the years of neglect settling upon its bones. But the deeper she ventured, the more she felt the weight of unseen eyes watching her every move. But deep down, a primal unease began to stir within her. It was an instinctual feeling, a warning that something was not quite right. The mansion was not just a building, it was a living entity, and it had plans for her. Blackwood Manor was a labyrinth of echoing hallways and shadowy corners. The walls seemed to whisper secrets of the past, their voices carried by the draft that snaked through the corridors. Each room whispered tales of a forgotten era, of lives lived and lost within its walls. The grandeur of the past was now a mere shadow, with peeling wallpaper and dust-covered furniture telling stories of neglect. Cobwebs draped the once ornate furniture like ghostly shrouds, and the scent of dampness clung to the air. The decay was palpable, a testament to the years of abandonment and the relentless passage of time. The silence was broken only by the creaking of floorboards beneath her feet. Each step she took seemed to echo through the empty rooms, a reminder of the solitude that enveloped the manor. Isabel wandered through the rooms, her fingers trailing over the cold, smooth surfaces of long-abandoned furniture. She could almost feel the presence of those who had once called this place home, their essence lingering in the air. She imagined the people who had walked these halls, their laughter and sorrows echoing through time. The faded portraits on the walls seemed to watch her, their eyes following her every move. But as the days turned into nights, the silence began to press in on her, becoming less a comfort and more of a suffocating presence. The once intriguing whispers of decay now felt like a heavy weight, a constant reminder of the isolation that surrounded her. Her dreams came in fragments at first, fleeting images that dissolved upon waking. A man with sorrowful eyes, his face shrouded in shadow, a whisper of a name carried on the edge of the wind. Isabel dismissed them as mere figments of her imagination, the product of a tired mind working overtime. But the dreams grew stronger, more vivid. The man's face became clearer, his expression a mixture of longing and despair. He reached for her, his touch a whisper of coldness against her skin. Isabel would wake with a gasp, her heart pounding in her chest, the lingering chill clinging to her like a shroud. The line between dreams and reality began to blur. Isabel would catch glimpses of movement in the shadows, hear the rustle of fabric where there was none. The man from her dreams seemed to haunt her waking hours, his presence a constant unsettling weight on her mind. She tried to focus on her writing, to lose herself in the world she was creating. But the words felt hollow, meaningless. The specter of the man, with his sorrowful eyes and his air of desperate longing, had seeped into her thoughts, poisoning her creativity. Section 5. The walls speak. The mansion seemed to close in around her, its silence no longer empty but filled with whispers and murmurs. Faces swam in the patterns of the wallpaper, their expressions shifting from amusement to malice in the flickering candlelight. The air grew thick with the scent of decaying flowers, a cloying sweetness that made her head spin. Isabel wandered the halls, her mind unraveling like a threadbare tapestry. She couldn't escape the feeling that she was being watched, that the mansion itself was alive, feeding on her fear. Her sanity, once a sturdy fortress, began to crumble under the relentless assault of the supernatural. Section 6. A Glimmer in the Darkness. One night, in the depths of her despair, Isabel stumbled upon a hidden room. She had been wandering the old mansion seeking solace from her troubled thoughts when she noticed a faint draft coming from behind a wall. It was tucked away at the end of a narrow corridor, its door concealed behind a tapestry. The tapestry was ancient, its fabric worn and faded, depicting scenes of a forgotten era. The air in the room was cold, still, as if it had been sealed for centuries. Dust particles floated in the dim light, undisturbed by time, giving the room an eerie, timeless quality. And in the center, bathed in the pale moonlight that streamed through a crack in the boarded-up window, stood a writing desk. The desk was old, its wood darkened with age, yet it seemed to hold a certain dignity. Isabel approached the desk, her fingers trembling as she touched the worn surface of the wood. She could feel the history embedded in its grain, the countless hands that had touched it before her. A journal lay open, its pages filled with elegant script. The handwriting was meticulous, each letter crafted with care, as if the writer had poured their very soul into each word. As she began to read, she felt a connection to the words, to the soul that had poured its secrets onto the page. The emotions within the journal were raw and palpable, resonating deeply with her own feelings of loss and longing. It was the story of a man named Julian, who had loved and lost, and whose grief had tethered him to the mansion even in death. His sorrow was so profound that it seemed to echo through the very walls of the room, a haunting reminder of the pain that had once filled this space. Night after night, Isabel devoured Julian's words. She learned of his passionate love for a woman named Clara, of her untimely death, and of his own descent into madness and despair. He wrote of his longing to be reunited with his beloved, of his inability to find peace without her. And slowly, Isabel began to understand the specter that haunted her dreams. He wasn't a malevolent entity, but a soul trapped in limbo, consumed by grief and unable to move on. He sought solace, connection, someone to hear his tale of love and loss. Isabel found herself at a crossroads. She could flee Blackwood Manor, escape the chilling presence that haunted its halls, and try to forget the Specter and his sorrowful tale. Or she could stay, face her fears, and try to help Julian find peace. The decision weighed heavily on her. Fear urged her to run, to seek the safety of the familiar world outside the mansion walls. But compassion and a strange sense of responsibility for the heartbroken soul trapped within held her captive. She chose to stay. In the heart of the mansion, in the room where she had found Julian's journal, Isabel called out to him. She spoke of his love for Clara, of the depth of his grief, and of her own understanding of his pain. And he came to her, not with anger or malice, but with a heart-wrenching sadness that seemed to emanate from his very being. He spoke of his longing, his despair, and his inability to escape the prison of his own grief. The details of their encounter remained with Isabel always, a chilling memory etched into her soul. Did she help Julian find peace? Did his tormented spirit finally find release from the mansion's grasp? Or did he remain, bound to the place of his sorrow, his cries echoing through the halls for all eternity? Blackwood Manor stood silent once more, its secrets locked away behind its crumbling facade. But those who dared to listen closely could still hear the whispers, the echoes of love and loss, and the chilling reminder that some wounds, even death cannot heal.